Hi, good evening everybody. So tonight's live stream is about what core strengthening exercises you can do to help protect your lower back. My name is Maryke. I'm sports physiotherapist from sportsinjuryphysio.com, where you can get online physiotherapy consultations. Okay, so what I'm going to do in tonight's session is I'm going to explain how the core works. I'm going to explain the basics of core strength to you, where I start to teach people from when I get to work out a program for them. And then I'll actually run you through those first level exercises, because if you can nail those exercises, you can actually apply it to any other exercise you do, and then everything becomes a core exercise. Good, so I'm seeing that quite a few of you guys are joining. How it works, remember, if you've got any questions, ask them in the comments. And if you're watching this on replay, feel free to ask them in the comments and just tag me, Maryke Low, because then I can more easily see, because Facebook doesn't always tell me when you guys comment. Excellent. So, first of all, I want to make it clear that there's not just one or two specific exercises that will help to protect your back. The reason that core exercises or core strengthening exercises can support your lower back for you is because they surround the trunk, and the stronger the muscles are that surround the trunk and the lower back, the more support they can give to the joints and the discs and everything, and the less stress those structures have to take. Now you've got a superficial core layer, and then you've got deep core muscles. So your superficial layer is the nice ones that gives you a six-pack and gives you a nice shape to your tummy muscles. And they are important for stability. They can give a lot of strength to the trunk, but actually they are not the first and most important ones that I like to focus on. I like to go for the lower levels, the deep core muscles first. And that's made up of your pelvic floors at the bottom, your transverse abdominis, which is a stomach muscle that runs right across, your multifidae muscles in your back. Now they are tiny little muscles that runs from one vertebrae to another. And because they cross over the vertebrae one at a time, they can really lend a lot of control to the vertebrae themselves. And they've actually shown with MRI scans that when people have back pain, those muscles switch off, and they become infiltrated by fatty layers, which shows that they don't work as much as they normally should work. So those are very important ones if you have back pain to actually rehabilitate. But we're talking tonight about exercises to protect your back. So I'm assuming that you're people who don't actually have back pain at the moment. But the exercises that I'm going to show you tonight are things that I start my back pain patients off on as well. And then finally, the top layer of the core, the deep core muscles, is actually made up of the diaphragm. So the diaphragm, the transverse abdominis, the pelvic floor muscles, and the multifidus muscles, or the deep layer of the back muscles, work together to provide the first level of stability. And what they've shown through studies that they've done is that that layer of muscles works at a very low level all the time during any activity you do. So say for instance you put your hand out to reach for something, they've already kicked in to an extent, and you don't feel them kicking in necessarily because it's literally 20% of their maximum contraction that they work at. Now if they don't kick in immediately, you can get that the vertebrae move in a slightly uncontrolled manner. You can get that if your pelvic floors are weak, you can get a leaky bladder, leaky bowel. It even affects your sexual function. So for men, they've shown if you can do pelvic floor exercises, it can help erectile dysfunction. And there's some research out there to show that it sometimes even works better than Viagra. And pelvic floor exercises are often just associated with pregnant women or after you've had a baby, that women struggle with it because it all stretches. But it's just as important for men. And I'll get to that a little bit more in detail in a minute. So most of the exercises that we do for traditional core exercises, like your planks and everything like that, they do activate the deep core muscles, but they work a lot on the outer layers, the outer muscles. So if you think of sit-ups and things like that, that uses all the big moving muscles, the rectus, abdominis, and everything. The way that you can activate your deep core muscles is actually through activating your pelvic floors. So what they've shown is if you can get a nice strong contraction of your pelvic floor muscles, it automatically kicks in your transverse abdominis as well as your multifidus muscles in the back. And what I often find is that when I test people to see how good they are at activating the pelvic floors, they can't do it without over-activating everything else in the stomach. So what I'm going to teach you today is how to first isolate the pelvic floor muscles so that we can get the transverse abdominis and the erector spinae at the back, or not the erector spinae, the multifidae muscles at the back kicking in. And then we're going to see if we can use that stability action with leg movements to make it a little bit more difficult. Okay, good. So let me see. I'm not entirely sure how you're going to see this from this angle, but I'm going to try and place it so that you can see me from the top, kind of. Now, the easiest way to do it is in lying, but before I get down to lying, I'm actually going to show you something in sitting first. So what we don't want to do when we try to activate the deep muscles and then the pelvic floor muscles is I don't want you to try too hard, because the harder you try, the more you're just going to recruit all the superficial muscles. So I want you to really just try to gently contract those muscles. Okay. They are also mainly made up of slow twitch muscle fibers. So you've got to do the contraction nice and slowly. If you're going to try and go gunk like that, you're just going to use the big muscles. Now, things that I see that people do that is an indication that they're using more the superficial layers than the deep layers is if I tell them to stabilize with their tummy muscles, they do that. So they're pulling everything up in there, and it's really just this top layer that's working. The other thing is that they're really bracing, and you can see that, and they're not actually breathing. Okay, that's not useful either, because you can't run around like that. You've got to be able to actually breathe while you do things as well. I find teaching these exercises in lying is the easiest way, because then you take all the other things out of the equation. So let's get this. I just want to adjust the laptop so I can see myself as well. Good. So the pelvic floor muscles is actually, it's divided into two groups. You've got your anterior, your front pelvic floor muscles, and they are the ones that stops you from wetting yourself. And then you've got the posterior pelvic floor muscles, or the ones around your bum hole, that stops you from farting in public, basically. By activating the front ones, you kick the transverse abdominis into action, and by activating the ones at the back, around the sphincter or your bum hole, you activate the muscles in your lower back, in the lower back more, so the multifidae muscles. So I want you to first of all just imagine that you've got a massive wee and you don't want to wet yourself, and I want you to just tense the muscles at the front between your legs as if you don't want to wee. Now, things I don't want to see is legs together, so you're not meant to be tensing your adductor muscles. I do not want, I'll open my stomach so you can see what's happening here. I don't want to see that you're doing this type of thing, because that is me just pulling way too much in with all of that. What I want you to do is just tighten up so that you can feel the muscles kind of where the bladder runs. Those aren't the pelvic floors you're feeling, but that's actually the transverse abdominis kicking in. But if you can feel a tightening happening in that area, and often you can see the belly button going in and a little bit down as well, then you know it's going the right way. If, however, the belly button is coming up, then it's the wrong contraction and you're using this bit. Okay, so just think about having a massive wee and squeezing as if you don't want to wee. Now, don't worry if you can't massively feel it. All I want you to be aware of is a tensioning in this area. Something else that works for men, I know, I've been told, is if you can imagine that feeling that you get when you walk into really, really icy cold water and everything that's important pulls up to get away from the water. That's the same sensation. That's your pelvic floor muscles actually pulling everything up. So see if you can get that sensation. Now for the posterior pelvic floors, what you want to think about is tensing the muscles around the bum hole. Now, it's not squeezing your glutes. Your glutes should be relaxed, so it's not that action, okay? It's just gently squeezing the muscles that's just around the bum hole. So what I usually tell people is, imagine the queen's in the room and you've got a massive fart or a new girlfriend and you don't want to let that fart go. So just gently squeeze around the bum hole, but do it so gently that nobody else in the room knows that you're even doing it. Okay. Now combine that with squeezing as if you don't want to wee. Can you feel how that just gently tenses everything down there? It's not a strong contraction. You probably can't even see much happening in my stomach. So it's literally that's happening. And what I can feel is if you relax everything first and you push your hands, these are my hip bones, go on the inside of them. If I push really hard in there and I squeeze if I don't want to wee and I squeeze if I don't want to fart, I can feel muscles tensing under my fingers. Now, if I let it go, you can feel my fingers moving in again. So I'm going to squeeze it again. You can see belly buttons going down, and then I'm relaxing it again. So it's literally, if you can feel these muscles working more than pulling in, then you're likely doing it right. If you really struggle with tensing them and not pulling your breath in, something that works quite well is if you take a deep breath in, and then as you breathe out, you imagine pushing the air out from down there. Okay, so you breathe in deep and you push the air out. But the ribs go down, they don't come in. Okay, but you don't have to go that technical. Just think about tensing that. Okay, now you've got that tensed. What I want you to do is I want you to feel your lower back flat onto the floor. Okay, so I want you to tense those muscles first and just gently bring your pelvis back into the floor so that your back is flat. Now, you're going to concentrate on keeping this bit as still as possible. Imagine my glass of Friday wine on there, and you're not allowed to spill it. And you're going to let one leg drop out to the side. Now, as soon as you let the leg go out to the side, this side is going to want to lift to come up, and it's not allowed to do that. Sometimes my patients find it useful if they can place their hands underneath them. I don't have enough space on this side, but I'll do it on this side, so that you can feel the pressure on your hand there. And as you let your leg go out to the side, you can feel that it's not actually moving off my hand. So what you'll feel if it does move is that the pelvis will come away like that, and that's wrong. Okay. You can also have your hands there if that's easier for your shoulders, and just make sure that you can feel that that's not happening. And see if you can do it on the other side. Now, if you find that you can keep that tight, but when you do it, it's a shake, shake, shake movement, that's okay. It just shows that it's not quite got that control. So that's something you can practice. But if you find that, no, I can keep that easily still and move the leg out as far as I want without any movement, then you're pretty much okay to move on to the next exercise. So what I want you to try then is to have your lower back flat into the floor, tightening up those pelvic floor muscles first, okay? And then see, can you lift one leg off the floor without anything moving in this area? Now, often what I find is people go like that, so really quickly, and they don't even notice that this has moved because they've done it so quickly. So what I want you to do is don't think about the leg that's moving. I want you to think about this bit and feeling the pressure under there and making sure that you're not holding your breath, okay? So the pressure's under there, you're thinking about that, and you're slowly lifting that leg up, making sure you don't feel it lift. It's usually putting it back down that's more difficult. So as you place it down, think about not allowing that to move. So keep it down. Do not allow it to lift. Okay? So what you will see if you're struggling with that is you may see that you get a little bit of a pelvic lift as you lift it, or as you place it down, it's going to want to come away from that. Okay, and it's always the opposite side that's going to give you trouble. So to show you from that side, I'm tightening up my pelvic floors. I'm sticking my back into the floor just for reference here and bringing that up. And then placing it back down, not allowing it to come off. Now, if you can do that easily, then you step up. So then you keep your back flat, Remember, you're thinking about this bit, lift up, and now can you bring the other leg up to join as well? Okay, so what you can see is if you struggle, if you bring that one up, you may find that that happens. So you move forwards. So really roll it back, try to keep it back against that, and then see if you can place one back down, not allowing it to lift. What you may find is that it wants to come away with you and go like that. So you can see my back is arching there. You don't want to find that. You want to keep it flat and place it back down. Okay. That means that you have total control over this bit, but you have to activate those pelvic floor muscles first. So the nice thing is, once you've nailed that pelvic floor contraction, you can use it in any other exercise. Any exercise that tightens up this bit while you're doing things. So if you think of your regular planks, it's a great exercise to build strength around your lower back. That type of scissor movement I've just done is great for runners because it teaches you how to keep the stability around this bit while your legs move. Another example is anything where you do weights with your arms. If you tighten up your pelvic floors and get that kicking in and bracing gently with that, then while doing your arm exercises, if you don't allow any of this to move, it actually becomes a core exercise. So as long as you apply it to every single exercise you do, you're basically strengthening your core. Now, I should have pointed out that when I was doing that, let me just show this to you again. When I'm doing this exercise, you'll notice that I'm able to talk all the way through, which means that I'm not holding my breath. I can actually move my neck as well. So what you want to be able to do is first find the pelvic floors, activate them. Now sometimes you can feel that they go tight, and then when you start to breathe, see if you can breathe 10 times and still feel the contraction. And every time you breathe out, make sure you try to tighten up even more. If you find that it's fluttering and going away, then it just means your endurance isn't there. So work on that first. Once you've got that, then you've got to be able to do one leg at a time, but no tension in the neck, not holding your breath. You're breathing quite normally. It won't necessarily be a deep breath, but you're still able to breathe. And then it goes from there. So at this point, I've trained mine that I can actually go into this type of movement and still move my neck nice and easy, and my arms are free. At the beginning when I did this, I had to kind of brace with everything because it took a lot of effort. But the stronger you get and the more you concentrate on actually using the lower tummy muscles more, the more freedom you will get and the better you will breathe. Excellent. So I hope that's given you a few new ideas about how to actually strengthen up your core muscles and how to activate the pelvic floor muscles specifically. I've also written a short blog post about this, but if you've got any questions, let me know. There was one question in the on my page earlier about what type of warm-up exercise is good for the lower back. And to be honest, I've been thinking about it. It really depends on what type of exercise you're planning to do in your strength training session. So of course, something like the rowing machine is a nice full body warm-up exercise to get everything warmed up, including the lower back muscles. But if you're planning to do heavy squats or deadlifts or things, then actually using those same movements but just without weights or very light weights is a very good warm-up. So I would say ideally do something like the rowing machine for 10 minutes or so, and then do a few, if you're going to do deadlifts or squats and things that's heavy during your session, do a few of those just body weight ones to just use the muscles and check your form with that. That's what I would do as a warm-up. Excellent. That's basically my story for tonight. I hope I've given you new ideas, and let me know if you've got any questions. Take care. Thank you for watching. If you would like to learn more about preventing sports injuries, make sure you hit the subscribe button. See you next time.